This lecture is on first declension nouns. It also includes a basic introduction to Greek nouns. First of all, the question we must ask is, what is a noun? A noun is a word that refers to a person, place, thing, or idea. For instance, in the picture you see a dog, which in Greek is called a skoulos. Greek nouns are characterized by three broad characteristics. They have case, which we'll get into. Greek case includes nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. Greek nouns have gender. A Greek noun will be either masculine, feminine, or neuter. And finally, Greek nouns have number. That is, they can be singular to refer to one thing or plural to more than one thing. For instance, when we're talking about number, it's singular or plural. A singular applies to one person or thing. For instance, I, you, he, she, or it are all singular forms of the personal pronoun in English. But if we're talking more than one, well, that's plural. So we, you all, or they, that, those are plural forms of our personal pronouns in English. How do we form the singular and the plural? Well, in English, we move from, generally speaking, from singular to plural by adding an S or an ES to the end of the singular form to form the plural. For instance, boy becomes boys, and box becomes boxes, although there are some exceptions to the English language, like women, woman, women. No addition of an S, a change of a letter within the word itself. How do Greek nouns form their plural? Greek nouns form their plural by adding plural endings on the end of the stem, the noun stem. For instance, examples of first declension nouns that we're learning today are phone and cardia. Phone means sound or voice. Cardia means heart. So phone is the singular form, and phonai is the plural form. Cardia is the singular form, and cardii, that's the plural form. So voice, voices, heart, hearts. Okay? Gender. English nouns, by and large, are not gendered, unlike other languages such as German or French or Spanish. But there are some English nouns that still reflect natural gender. For instance, prince and princess, or actor and actress. Greek nouns have gender, but that gender is a grammatical gender. That is, the noun itself is gendered, and that really has no relevance to the gender of the person or the thing or the object in the real world. Now, there are some Greek nouns that do reflect natural gender, such as the word for sister, adelphe. But by and large, Greek nouns are grammatically gendered. For instance, an example of a masculine noun is logos. An example of a feminine noun is graphe. Example of a neuter noun is sabbaton, Sabbath. Grammatical gender, as I previously noted, does not reflect natural gender. For instance, two words for sin. Hamartolos is the word for sinner, and it's masculine. Whereas the word for sin is hamartia. That's feminine. But there's nothing inherently about the word for sin that makes it a feminine concept. It's just gendered grammatically that way. Greek nouns have case. Now, what is case? Well, Greek nouns change their form with respect to an ending that goes on the end of the noun stem to fulfill different functions within a sentence. And these different functions are called cases. For instance, what we would call a subject of a sentence or clause is the nominative case in Greek. Or if a noun is acting as a possessive, that is, this is Jim's cup. Okay? The cup of Jim. That possessive would be in the genitive case in Greek. Nouns can act as the indirect object of a sentence. For instance, I gave my cup to Bob. Bob is the indirect object of that action. Receiving the direct object is the cup itself. I am picking up the cup, it's feeling the effect of my action, and I'm giving it, indirect object, to Bob. That indirect object is in the dative case. And finally, the direct object of a verb's action is in the accusative case. So keep these functions in mind, but also note that the language that we're going to be using from here on in to talk about Greek nouns is nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative. So link up the function with the name of the case, and you'll be able to understand how they act within a sentence. Speaking of how a noun's function is shown, let's compare Greek and English. So for instance, in English we have a very set word order that shows the function of a noun within a sentence. We tend to have subject, verb, and direct object. For instance, the man, subject, sees, verb, direct object, the angel. Imagine if word order was flexible in English. You wouldn't know who was doing the action or who was receiving the action. So let's say you decide to put the verb first. Sees the man the angel. Well, who is seeing what? Who's doing the action? Or the angel, the man, sees. Who's the subject? Who's the direct object? That's why English isn't flexible, whereas in Greek, our sentence order is flexible. So we need to show the function of the word by these case endings so that we're able to distinguish subject, direct object, indirect object, possession, etc., etc. Here's an example. God loves the world. I put up four sentences there, which translate that English into a Greek sentence. And all of them say the same thing. Theos agapa ton kosmon. There you see subject, verb, object, but Greek word order is flexible. You can have agapa ton kosmon theos. That still means God loves the world. Or you could have ton kosmon theos agapa. Still the same thing. Or agapa theos ton kosmon. All these sentences mean the same thing in Greek. So you need these case endings on the end of a word to distinguish their function within the sentence. That's why you need to learn case endings. Here's another example of the link between function and case. So again, the nominative case is the case of the subject of a sentence, and we would use a personal pronoun I or we. Whereas if we're talking about possession, that is, I own something, or this thing is connected to me, I would use the genitive case. So it's my cup or our cup. Again, the dative case expresses indirect object. So I might give the cup, someone might give the cup to me, or someone might give the cup to us. Okay? And finally, the direct object is the word that directly receives the action of the verb. So that's the accusative case. And so in this situation, the direct object forms of the personal pronouns are me and us. All right? Here's another chart showing function and case with Greek words. So the nominative or the subject case is phone in the singular, and in the plural, phonai. The genitive indicates possession. So it's phones, of a voice, or phonon, of voices. The dative or the indirect object in the singular form is phone, and notice that iota subscript that I talked about last week. This is a situation where the end of the noun stem lengthens, and the iota, which is the real ending, subscripts. It's silent though. The plural form is phonais, so singular 2 or 4 a voice, and plural 2 or 4 voices. Finally, the accusative is the direct object, and there we have phonane or phonas, voice or voices. In Greek, we talk about a word called declension. Declension is a pattern of endings that go on the end of a noun. And there are 3 major basic patterns or categories of nouns in the Greek language. First declension nouns are feminine nouns ending in an alpha or an eta. That's what we're learning about today. 2 examples are phone ends in an eta, or cardia ends in an alpha. Second declension nouns, which we'll learn about next week, are masculine and neuter nouns whose stem ends in an omicron. So you have an example of a masculine noun there, logos, and an example of a neuter noun, ergon. See the omicron with both? These are the nominative forms of the 2 nouns. Notice the different ending. A sigma here and a nu here. That's how you distinguish a masculine from a neuter. And finally, third declension nouns are some of the trickiest nouns to learn. They include nouns of all 3 genders, and they end in a consonant, as we see in this example, sarx, which is the word for flesh. We'll learn about third declension nouns later on in the term. Another Greek language word that we use when we're learning Greek is paradigm. A paradigm is a representative pattern or an example chart. So when I say this is the paradigm for a first declension noun, I'm talking about a chart which shows all the forms of the noun. And the following 3 paradigms represent the eta and the alpha patterns of the first declension nouns. For example, let's first learn the eta pattern. This is the pattern of first declension nouns whose nominative form ends in an eta. Okay? And what I've done with this chart is I've included the definite article along with the noun. The definite article is the Greek word for the. Okay? So let's walk through it. Nominative forms. Singular, he, phone, the voice. Hi, phonai, the voices. Tes, phones, of the voice. Tone, phonon, of the voices. Dative, te, phone, to the voice. Tais, phonais, to the voices. And the accusative, tain, phonane, and tas, phonas. The voice, the voices. Okay? So you need to learn this pattern. this paradigm for first declension eta. Now, the endings are consistent all the way through. So a zero ending, a sigma, an iota, a noon, an iota, an own, an iota sigma, and a sigma. Those are consistent all the way through for all three paradigms of these first declension nouns. But you will notice one thing here that's you must note. The eta here is found in the singular forms, and that shifts over to an alpha in the plural forms. Okay? So in this eta pattern, the eta is seen in the singular forms and the alpha is seen in the plural forms. So moving on from the eta pattern, I want to move on to an alpha pattern, and these are what are called alpha pies. So if a alpha ending noun is preceded by a first declension alpha noun is preceded by an iota, an epsilon, or a rho, it will have this pattern. Okay, and that becomes very important. Those are the majority of first declension nouns. Okay, so this is by and large the most prevalent pattern for alpha ending, but there's another pattern which I'm going to go through. So let's walk through it. Hey, cardia. Okay, just the alpha. Tes cardias. Te cardia and tain cardian. Zero ending, sigma, iota subscript, nu. Let's do the plural forms, beginning with the nominative. Hi cardii, tone cardione, tais cardiais, and tas cardias. Now notice that the alpha at the end of the noun stem remains constant all the way through this paradigm, except for here. The own is a long vowel, so it pushes the alpha out of the way and just takes over. That's why the alpha drops. Okay? But we see the alpha all the way through. And as you look at this paradigm, you're going to ask, wait a second, the genitive singular form, alpha sigma, is the same as the accusative plural form. How in the world am I going to know the difference? You'll know the difference in two ways. First, you'll know from context what is what's the case in the number. The genitive form of the noun is used in particular ways, distinct from the accusative. So your context within a sentence will be a big clue. Secondly, oftentimes they'll have the article, the word the, next to it. So if you see this form next to it, you know it's a singular genitive. If you see this form, you know it's an accusative plural. Okay? Finally, the final paradigm we're going to look at today is the alpha pattern for what are called non-pi alphas. So if an alpha ending first declension noun is not preceded by a rho, an iota, or an epsilon, it's a non-pi, and this is the pattern that we see. Now this is the much rarer form of the alpha pattern in first declension nouns. It occurs 36. This pattern occurs with 36 words that occur in the Greek New Testament. That's not a lot, and of those 36, only 4 of those nouns, those non-pi alphas, occur with any great frequency. So it's doxa, it's the word for hell, geneia, it's the word for sea, thalassa, and the word for tongue or language, glossa. And here's what happens. So, hey, doxa, tes, dox, ace. Notice what happens. The alpha in the singular switches to an eta in the singular form of the genitive. And then te, doxe, again, you have this eta appearing. And then in an accusative, it switches back to tain doxan. Okay? Now over in the plural, again, it's all alpha. Hi doxai, tone doxone, tais doxais, tas doxas. So the only two forms that are really going to be tricky here are when the alpha switches to this eta in the genitive and in the dative. Okay? Tais doxais, te doxane. But again, the endings are consistent. I want to talk a bit about morphology. And morphology is kind of a technical term to talk about the breakdown of the parts of a word. And we do that a lot when we're learning Greek. We break it down into bits to see what's the stem, what's the ending, what changes are happening within a word. Because changes within a word, a Greek word, are important. So when we talk about morphology, we talk about a morpheme. A morpheme is the smallest meaning unit of a word. So it's the smallest bit of a word that adds some meaning to it. An inflection is a change or an addition made to a word that alters its meaning or its function within a sentence. And Greek is highly inflected. All the nouns change their form all the time to either change their meaning or their function. English, not so much. We have changes from singular to plural, and we have changes in our personal pronouns. They are highly inflected, but for the most part, English is not as inflected as Greek. So the various case endings, that is morphemes, are added to the end of a noun, and that alters its meaning. That is, you have singular and plural forms, and its function. It's either acting as a subject, a possessive case, an indirect object, or a direct object. So when a noun changes its form, this is called an inflection. And a noun inflects to perform a certain function within the sentence or to change its meaning. Okay? Here's an example. Meaning. You can have meaning of a personal pronoun that changes its form to refer to a guy, a he, or a female, a she. Or the form of a pronoun can change to show that it's changed its function within the sentence. For instance, she studies Greek. She is the subject. The third person personal pronoun in the feminine case, for the feminine, she studies Greek. I teach her. In this situation, the she that we're talking about, who's the subject of this sentence, becomes the direct object, and that pronoun changes to her to take on that function of direct object. So when we talk about Greek words and learning Greek, we talk about its lexical form. Lexical is a fancy word for dictionary form. A lexicon is the word for dictionary in Greek. So when you look up a word, you'll be looking up it in a lexicon. So the lexical form is the form you find in the dictionary. And for all nouns, it is the nominative singular. So for instance, the word for world or universe is cosmos. There you'll see its nominative singular form. That's its lexical form. But we'll also talk about the inflected form of a noun. And the inflected form is the form of the noun that you find within a text, within a part of the Greek New Testament where it's actually functioning within a sentence or clause. And that inflected form can be any case or number because it's inflected. It's acting in a certain way to function within the sentence and to communicate certain meaning. And so the example I've shown here is cosmon. Now, cosmos, dictionary form had a sigma on the end. Cosmon, with this nu on the end, is its accusative form. So it's inflected. It's changed its form, and it's to show that it's functioning a certain way within the sentence. It's the direct object. Okay? So lexical versus inflected. The next thing I want to talk about is the article. Now in English we have two articles. We have the definite article, which is the word the, and the indefinite article, a or on. Greek has only one article, and this one article functions like the English definite article. The forms of the article are gendered. So you have a masculine form of the article, which is ha, a feminine form, which is he, and a neuter form, which is ta. Generally speaking, a noun that is not preceded by the article is often translated indefinitely with an a or an on, but that's not a hard and fast rule. We will discover all sorts of exceptions to this rule as we are translating Greek. Here's some terms about the article. If a noun is anarthros, it means it doesn't have the article in front of it. If it's arthros or articular, it has the article in front of it. So I've used two examples there, cardia, a heart, or he cardia, the heart. The article agrees with the noun it precedes in case, gender, and number. So if you had an accusative plural noun, a feminine accusative plural noun, the article would need to be feminine, accusative, and plural. Okay? So that's why you need to learn all the forms of the article. Because there are three genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter. And each one of those three genders has 8 forms to cover all the cases. So 4 cases plus 2 numbers equals 24 forms of the article. 3 genders plus 8 forms each, 24 forms of the article you need to learn. So let's walk through the paradigm for the feminine form of the article. He, singular nominative, hi, plural nominative. Genitive, tes, plural form, tone. Dative form, te, plural form, tis. Accusative form, tain, plural form, tas. Now, you can learn these whatever way you want to learn them. You can learn them in terms of their singular form, he, tes, te, tain, and then their plural forms, hi, tone, tas, tis, tas, or you can go like what I've done here, he, hi, tes, tone, te, tis, tain, tas. However you want to learn them. Learn the feminine forms and you'll be good to go with every feminine noun. This is the article that goes with it. I want to talk a bit about conjunctions. Conjunctions are words that are not declined. That is, they don't have case endings. They don't change their form. And these are words that are used to link words, phrases, clauses, and larger chunks of text together. And there's 2 types of conjunctions. There's coordinating conjunctions, which connect things that are of equal rank. For instance, de means but or and. Kai means and men means on the one hand, on the other hand. You have subordinating conjunctions, which subordinate a clause in a dependent relationship to another clause. For instance, you have 2 examples here. Haughty, which means because or that, and you have henna, which means in order that. Some of our conjunctions are post-positive, and that means that the conjunction cannot be the first word in a sentence or clause. It is always generally second in the clause. Even though that's the case, that post-positive conjunction in our English translation appears first. So a good example of that is de, which means and or but. It occurs post-positively, generally the second letter in the clause, but it's always translated in English as the first. And this, or but that. Okay? One of the things we're going to be doing with nouns is parsing them. So when we see a Greek noun, we have to analyze it. How do we analyze it? We give 5 pieces of information. So we see the inflected form on a page in an exercise or in a Greek text. Right away we want to find its lexical form so that we can look it up in a dictionary and figure out what it is. We want to talk about its gender. Is it masculine, feminine, or neuter? We want to talk about its case. Is it nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative? We want to talk about its number. Is it masculine? Is it singular or plural? And finally, we want to provide a little bit of a translation of that word. How is that inflected word translated within the Greek text? Okay? So let me show you a few examples. Kardion. Notice it has that noon on the end. So what is this? Well, its lexical form, that's the inflected form. Its lexical form is cardia, just with the alpha, the nominative singular form. So it's cardia. This cardion is feminine. Again, we're dealing with first declension nouns, so they're all feminine. This example has a noon on the end. If you go look back on your handout or in your book, you'll notice that that's accusative. That's the accusative ending. And it's the accusative singular ending for cardia. So the translation of that would be heart or a heart. Cardia, cardian, it's from cardia, it's feminine, accusative singular, and it means heart or a heart. Let's look at this word, phonais. It's from the word phone. That's its dictionary form, lexical form. Phonais. It's feminine, the feminine noun. It's dative, plural. So this is the dative plural ending that we find on the end of phone. And the translation of this would be 2 or 4 voices. So notice I've shown the dative kind of idea with the 2 or the 4, and the plural idea is with the S on the end, voices. I've made it plural, 2 or 4 voices. And lastly, there's zoe, zoes. And it's from zoe. Okay? It's got a sigma on the end. That's its lexical or dictionary form. So that's feminine, and that's the genitive singular ending. Okay? The sigma on the end, phonais, the genitive singular. And that means of a life. So I have reflected it could be of life as well. That reflects the genitive idea of an of, and I've reflected a singular idea of a life, or it could be of life. You don't necessarily need that indefinite article in there. Okay? So that's everything for now. So what I encourage you to do is look at my handout and go through the various pre-class exercises and bring any questions or concerns you have to our Zoom time together. So until next time, this is your Professor Jim Knight, Jimmy the Greek, signing off.